In this lesson, you'll be learning how to teach your child K in isolation and in syllables. As you can see by the attached image, this chart puts K at about age 4 for most children. In other words, by age 4, 90% of children can produce the K sound correctly in speech. However, I believe in working with children as soon as possible so they don't develop bad speech habits. The K sound, which is also the hard C sound, is sometimes pronounced by children as T. Your child may say tat instead of cat or tight instead of kite. The K sound is produced in the back of the mouth when the back of the tongue pushes off against the very back top of your mouth. So, for instance, here's your mouth. K is produced way back here. T is up here, K is back here, and it's the back of your tongue that's pushing off, whereas T is the tip of your tongue up here. So if your child is producing T instead of K, he is doing what is called fronting, or making a back sound instead of producing it in the back, producing it in the front. So fronting. He may also be producing D instead of G because these sounds are just the voiced versions of T and K. To teach your child to produce K correctly, you need to prevent him from keeping his tongue in the front. First, ask him to try to make a coughing sound. I go like this, and then kind of turn it into a and see if he can do that. If you can do that, great. You can try to turn that into a true K in isolation. The idea is to get him to realize that the tongue has to be in the back there. So if not, you might have to bring out the tongue depressor or a lollipop and kind of put it back there and show him where the tongue is supposed to touch. You can use Mr. Mouth and show him there that way. So also what you can do is try to prevent the tongue from coming forward with that tongue depressor. So take the tongue depressor and you just hold it up here and behind the teeth so that when they go to move their tongue up to make a T sound, they can't touch it. And then you can gradually start putting it farther and farther back. Maybe if I show you this will be easier. So gradually start moving it farther and farther back until his tongue has to stay farther back to make the K sound. So eventually he has no choice. His tongue's going to try to move to make the sound, and he's probably trying to make T. But the tongue depressor is going to move it farther back so it can't go forward. And it will eventually kind of turn into a K sound. Also, try not to make him gag. Don't get so far back. And you can even let him do it himself, hold it himself so that he can have more control over it. So like I said, he probably won't get this right away. You may have to practice this over the course of several days or weeks, just a little bit at a time, until putting his tongue in the back of his mouth feels more natural to him. So continue to practice these techniques, encouraging a good K sound in isolation. If he's making the G sound instead, encourage him for getting his tongue back there, because G is made in the same place as K. So the only difference is that with K, his voice won't be on. G, it is. So if you say a G sound, you can feel your neck vibrate. If it's K, it won't vibrate and more air is coming out. It can also help to show him pictures of words that are minimal pairs. That just means that these words rhyme and are pronounced the same way except for one letter. So if your child is making a T instead of K, you could show him a picture of a key versus a T. Ask him if those pictures are the same thing, and then explain that unless he makes the K sound correctly, people might think he's talking about T. You have him try to say each word, and then you can point to whatever comes out of his mouth. So if he wanted to say key, but he says T instead, you would point to the T. You can also try this exercise with you saying the words T or key and see if your child points to the right word that you said. This will let you know if he can actually hear the difference between the two sounds or not. So point out that the T sound is made up behind the front teeth and the K sound is made way in the back of his mouth. So when your child can produce K in isolation with 80% accuracy, or about 4 out of 5 times, you can start on syllables like ka, ke, ki, kai, ko, and ku. For instance, you can start with ka. And I sometimes tell them it's the bird sound. Ka, ka. Sometimes they will do it if I ask them to make a bird sound like that. So use a mirror in front of both of you if you can, or at least give your child a hand mirror to look at and see if he can make ka, putting his tongue in the right place in the back of his mouth. So if you can't do it all at once, all together, you can try doing k, ah, k, ah. So separate it up and then gradually bring it closer together. K, ah, ka, ka. Try to make it fun and reward your child for any effort to produce the sound correctly. So practice each one at least 3 times, and then you can move on to the next syllable. So ka, then ke, ki, kai, ko, ku, and do the same thing. And you may find that some syllables will be easier for your child to produce, and that's okay. You can come back to the harder ones later. So move on to as many syllables as you can, trying to get as many correct productions as possible. When your child can produce K syllables correctly 80% of the time, then you can move on to initial K in words. From there, continue to work your way through all the K levels as outlined in the How to Teach Your Child Speech course. You've got this.